The night shift at Hamilton Towers was usually quiet, the kind of silence that echoed off marble floors and glass walls. Jacob Miller, a single dad and janitor, preferred it that way. Quiet meant he could think, work steadily, and keep his mind from wandering back to the bills piled on his kitchen counter, the empty chair across the table, and the small sleeping form of his daughter, Emma, whom he left in the care of his elderly neighbor every night. Jacob was 36, broad-shouldered from years of labor, but there was something humble in his eyes, a gentleness that people often missed at first glance. He had been a construction worker once, then a delivery driver, then whatever odd jobs he could find after his wife, Claire, passed away unexpectedly 3 years ago. Grief had stripped him down, but Emma, his light, his purpose, kept him alive. He worked nights so he could be there for her mornings, packing her lunch, braiding her hair, and walking her to school. Tonight, Hamilton Towers was different. The building still pulsed with life long after business hours. The top floors glowed. An international delegation had been meeting all day with the CEO, Eleanor Van Heusen, one of the most powerful women in the business world. She was a billionaire, a name Jacob had only ever read in news articles, the kind of person who lived in another universe entirely. He doubted she even knew janitors existed in her building. But fate has a way of twisting threads in unexpected patterns. Jacob was mopping near the grand lobby when his phone buzzed in his pocket. He hesitated. Personal calls were against policy while on the clock. But when he saw the name flash across the screen, Emma, he couldn't ignore it. She rarely called him this late unless it was important. He stepped into a quiet corner by the service elevator and answered softly. "Papa," Emma's small voice came through, trembling. "Ik heb een nachtmerrie jihad." Jacob's heart softened instantly. She was speaking in Dutch, the language he had taught her from his own childhood in the Netherlands before he moved to the US with Claire. Dutch was their secret code, a way to stay connected to his roots and to each other. He answered back, instinctively slipping into the comfort of his mother tongue. "Het is oké, liefje. Papa is higher. Je bent veilig. Ik wil dat je terug naar bed gaat en ik zing het liedje voor je, ja." He began humming softly the lullaby his mother had sung to him as a boy. His voice was low, soothing, carrying across the empty marble hall. What Jacob didn't know was that he was not alone. From the mezzanine above, Eleanor Van Heusen had descended quietly after hours of negotiations. Her heels clicked softly against the polished stone, but she stopped mid-step when she heard the unfamiliar language drifting upward. Dutch, clear, fluent, and tender. Eleanor froze, her breath catching in her throat. Dutch was her first language, the one she had abandoned in boardrooms and international deals, but it was still the one closest to her heart. For years, surrounded by advisors, lawyers, and investors, she had spoken in English, German, or French, but rarely Dutch. To hear it here, in the hushed lobby of her skyscraper, from the mouth of a janitor, was surreal. She listened without meaning to, drawn by the cadence of his words, the softness in his tone. He wasn't just speaking, he was fathering, pouring warmth into every syllable. When Jacob finished and promised Emma he would be home soon, he hung up and turned, only to nearly drop his phone when he saw her. "Ms. Van Heusen," he stammered, his mop handle nearly slipping from his hand. I'm sorry, I didn't mean." She raised a hand, silencing him. For once, her famously sharp features were softened by curiosity. "You speak Dutch?" Jacob blinked. "Yes, ma'am. It's my first language." Her eyes narrowed, studying him not like a billionaire studying a janitor, but like one human trying to understand another. "Most people here, they don't." Jacob gave a small shrug, embarrassed. "I don't get much chance to use it anymore. Except with my daughter." Eleanor's gaze flickered. The word daughter echoed somewhere deep inside her, brushing against old wounds she had buried beneath wealth and power. She had never had children. Her empire had taken that from her, demanded all of her time, her body, her youth. Sometimes, late at night in her penthouse, she wondered if all the zeros in her bank account could ever fill that absence. "What's her name?" Eleanor asked suddenly. "Emma," Jacob said, the corners of his lips lifting unconsciously at just saying it. "She's 9. For a long moment, the billionaire said nothing. She studied this man, his work-worn hands, his tired eyes, his unshakable softness. She had spent the entire day with men in suits shouting over contracts worth billions, but somehow, this janitor speaking to his daughter in Dutch felt more profound than all of it. "Stay," Eleanor said finally. Jacob frowned. "Ma'am." She stepped closer, her voice quieter now, less commanding, more human. "I want you to stay. Not here as a janitor. Stay in this building, with me. I don't know why yet, but something tells me, I need you to." The words stunned Jacob. He had no idea what she meant. Billionaires didn't just ask janitors to stay. But in her eyes, he saw something raw. Loneliness, perhaps, or the flicker of someone who had just remembered she had a heart. Over the following weeks, Eleanor kept her word. She asked Jacob to assist in small ways, translating documents in Dutch during negotiations, explaining cultural nuances her polished advisors missed. She discovered he was intelligent, articulate, observant. He had been overlooked his entire life, yet he possessed a kind of wisdom her world rarely valued, the wisdom of compassion. Jacob, for his part, was cautious. He still scrubbed floors, still worked nights, but now he was occasionally summoned upstairs, into boardrooms with views of the glittering city. He felt out of place, but Eleanor never mocked him. In fact, she listened to him more than she did her million-dollar consultants. The strangest part was how natural it felt. A billionaire and a janitor, worlds apart on paper, yet the space between them was bridged by language, by humanity, by the unseen loneliness that both carried. Then came the night that would change everything. Eleanor's company faced a crisis. A merger was collapsing, investors were panicking, and rival firms circled like sharks. The boardroom was chaos, shouting matches echoing into the early morning. Eleanor, usually the most controlled person in the room, looked shaken for the first time. It was Jacob, standing awkwardly near the wall, who noticed. He saw the faint tremor in her hands, the way she gripped her pen too tightly. He remembered how Emma's hands used to tremble after nightmares. So he did what came naturally. He leaned closer and whispered, in Dutch, so softly only she could hear. "Adem in, adem uit. You're not alone." The words hit her like a lifeline. Her chest loosened, her vision cleared. She looked at him. Not at the board, not at the numbers, not at the vultures circling her empire, but at him. The janitor, the father, the man who spoke to her in the language of home. That night, after the crisis settled and the boardroom emptied, Eleanor found Jacob in the lobby again. "Why are you here?" she asked quietly. "Why didn't life give you more? You should be leading, not cleaning." Jacob smiled sadly. "Life gave me Emma. That's more than enough." For the first time in years, Eleanor felt tears sting her eyes. She realized then that all her billions had never bought her what this janitor already had: love, purpose, family. And in that moment, she made a decision. Not out of pity, not out of power, but out of something far deeper. "You don't belong on these floors anymore," she said softly. "From now on, you'll be working by my side. As my advisor, as my friend. Stay, Jacob. Stay where you belong." Jacob didn't know what the future held. He only knew that somehow, a single call in Dutch, a lullaby for his daughter, had altered the course of his life forever. And as he walked home that night, the city lights shimmering above, he whispered to himself with quiet wonder. Sometimes, kindness speaks louder than power. Sometimes, humanity bridges worlds. And sometimes, all it takes is one word: stay.